I definitely stand on the shoulders of those women that have just spoken, because I align with their interpretation of what mobilizing and organizing is. In terms of successes and failures, I think I'll just give a little bit of niche to my understanding as well of what that is, and then we can sort of unpick what failure or success would look like in that case. So for me, organizing is very much around sustainability, aiming for action and implementing action, and sharing tasks responsibly, and building leadership and capacity to ensure that you actually achieve what you're looking for, or at least you're hitting sustainably to achieve that end goal that you're aiming for. So I think that that's the very key aspect of it. So you build community around an activist cause that you want to sort of see. Um, Whereas I say mobilization as having limitation, it's massive, it's important, it's something that we should do and should be done, but it's usually not as sustainable as what organizing is. It's one-time effort, and you mobilize around something that's part of a bigger picture. And that's what that's what I find to be the major difference. So you're looking at probably breadth and depth. So you have more depth when it comes to the organizing. So you're niched and you're focused and you're working towards it from a policy angle, a change perspective, theory of change narrative. Whereas when you're mobilizing, you're hitting hard on an action point that will lead towards that organizing and the reason for the organizing. So I think that that's very important for me to highlight as I'm saying that. So things, I have been involved with something that's called, there's an organization called the World Bicycle Relief. Okay. And so it's headquartered in Chicago. It operates around the world. And I come from a gender and international development background. And so I always want to look at girl child education because that was a factor in my childhood. I didn't know it then, but I was an activist that wanted to promote girl child education. And so the Beijing conference took place, the significant one, the 1995 one, and we wrote letters in submission to that particular thing, talking about why girl child education was important on the African continent and why primary school should be compulsory and stuff. We mobilized around that cause. But I think what has since happened in my journey is I've become part of this establishment called the World Bicycle Relief that makes it possible for the girl child to access education by providing them with a free bicycle. You empower her, you empower the family, and at large, you're tackling a bigger issue, which is around gender inequality. And also the legacy of patriarchy and colonialism in the same stone. So for me, that would be something that I consider to be successful. It's ongoing, but it's changing policy at academic level, at the household level. So you're not challenging traditions that limit the girl child from going to school. What you're doing is you're making it possible for the girl child to go to school. So that's really, for me, that's something that I would consider to be a success. When I think of things that have not been so successful as far as my engagement has been, I've been working in the refugee sector for quite a while now here in the UK. And within the sector, I felt like the power dynamics, I feel like there's so much institutional racism within the refugee sector. It has been difficult to actually bring it up and challenge it from a policy perspective, because it means you also disadvantage the people who are part of that, the people who the services are supporting. So some years ago, with those of some of you might remember this. Some years ago, I was co-founder of an organization, well, a movement called Why Refugee Women for Yorkshire and Humber. So the aim of that organization was to actually get organizations around Yorkshire and Humber to sign up to a minimum standards of how they're going to be working with and interacting with women who are of refugee or migrant backgrounds as a bare minimum standards. So we managed to get that charter. So there was the first part of this was that we needed to mobilize the women who are of refugee backgrounds. and they came together and we built this charter, and organizations signed up to that. But we failed to hold them accountable or to have a follow through. So it meant that some organizations were able to seek funding on the back of the fact that they had signed up to this charter, but there was no change at the actual policy implementation level. So in that sense, I feel like at that point, organizing actually fails. You can mobilize, but organizing fails because you're not yielding any results in that sense.